We're back with Doug and Judy Hall again, and I'd like to take a moment before we close to talk about Doug's book entitled The Cat and the Toaster. And I'd love for you to give us an explanation of what you mean by that. But I was looking at the back of the book, and just a quick, I think a very good way of summarizing. It says here, living system ministry is an approach to Christian ministry in the Western world that recognizes the differences between cats, the world God created, and toasters, the world we create using our technology and our capacities, limited as they are. So I know that in many ways you have put these 50 years of ministry into this book and the things that you have learned about doing ministry in an organic sort of way that we have discussed throughout this interview. Tell me a little bit about the image that you're using here and what it is that you seek to discuss in this book.
Mm-hmm. Well, you read the little summary there, and I always use the illustration of you know, if I took this and this was a toaster and I put it in front of you and gave you pliers and screwdriver, you could pretty much take the thing apart and...
Certainly could not put it back together again.
No, you're not that bright, huh? Yeah, mechanically?
Totally challenged.
Okay. But some people would actually be able to put it back together again and plug it in and it would make toast, okay? Sure. So then we remove the toaster and then we put in front of you a cat here and... and give you the pliers and screwdriver and ask you to now do something with this cat who has a urinary infection. You may have been reading my mind. I think I may have tried that when I was about 4 years old, and the poor cat didn't survive the experiment. Of course, impossible to put back together. Yeah.
Why is that?
You can't. Why can't you do it? You know, because it's a living thing, and in a living being, everything is interrelated to everything else. Living beings have the unthinkable ability to relate everything to everything. Okay, your brain has 10 billion neurons, and they all have about 30 pieces to them, and they fire it I don't know how many times a second, and it's an unthinkably complicated reality. Okay, that's what a living thing is. It's the highest level of organization possible to conceive. When your doctor works on your body, he's not trying to make you bionic. He's just trying to make it work the way it was designed to work.
And respect it.
And respect it. And the living organism of the church, you know, is if it operates as a totally interrelated, beautiful living thing, as it says in the Bible, it's an organism. It's not an organization. Then it will
made by God, designed by God,
designed by God. So you start using the kind of order that God puts into things, which is living order, okay? And you begin to operate within the context of how life works. And it's just an incredible thing. And, and so once you know, a church is operating, and you know, basically the idea of your doctor is to get all the different problems out of your body so that it can work that way. Well, in a similar way, some of the most effective things we can do at the church is to get the problems out of it, to you know, provide healing
and let
for
it flow according to its gifting and nature.
It
step back.
It has this incredible thing as a creation of God, as a church, to do unthinkable stuff. Its potential is enormous. It's not. We can't even imagine it, but we're hindering it by not letting it be what it's meant to be. And so that's, you know, that's the idea here, is that we're here to you know, not be organizational stuff and technologies and stuff that we make, you know, but how did God make the thing to work in the first place? And then to return it to that, and then the Spirit of God indwells living things, living realities. God, the Holy Spirit is the source of life Himself.
That kind of attitude, that kind of understanding of systems, how do you apply that?
One of the things that we did at the center about 20 years ago, we thought, this place is incredibly wonderful. It's just a great place to work. And I had tremendous fear that someday it would become just an organization and you keep the thing going and all that stuff. And I had enormous fear that that would, you know, you would lose the beauty of it. And so then Judy and I drove on a trip and we started driving back and we said, what are the things of this thing that's so beautiful we'd never want to lose? And so we began writing them out, okay? And then we got back to the center where the other staff members were, and they said, what are the things that are so beautiful, that are of God, that we would never want to lose? And we started writing them all out. And then we put them all into a, there were about 28 things or something, and we put them into categories and said, okay, we're going to do all these categories. And we started that some 20 years ago, and the vitality of the organization is present today as it was then. It has all kinds of different things.
And you connect that with the respect for those things and
yes,
adhering to that.
I could tell you what they are. You know, one is we're here to see God's kingdom grow, and we are not that kingdom, you know, but God's kingdom to grow. And what grows God's kingdom, that's what we'll work with. We're here to not do what money can do, but what needs to be done, and we'll try to find the resources to make that, work. We're here to do relational things. And that's not just relational stuff within our organization, but relational stuff within any organization in the city. We never compete with anybody. Our purpose is there to help you get better, not to compete with you. And so you find you don't
servant leadership. I
yeah,
guess,
you don't offend any organization with what you do. Never compete with them. We try not to get much publicity just because we don't want to appear like we're competing for the big bucks and the big images and stuff like that. And as a result, you're trusted within the broader Christian community. And then we try to do what will produce long-term returns, not just short-term. In a complicated social system, what produces rapid returns always produces long-term decline. And so what we try to do is really gear into what is going to produce the longest productive fruit for God's kingdom, and then we focus on that. So, and then the other thing is we try to do with the leading and timing of God. You know, what is the timing of the Holy Spirit? You might want to do it now, but when does God want to do it? When does He make it available for it can really happen? When will it be, His thing and not yours?
And God is notoriously slow at times.
Well,
he's not slow. He has His own rhythm. But sometimes for us, it seems slow. And sometimes we're tempted to go ahead and try to accelerate
more significant
things.
When we wait, for His guidance on it. And so we can anticipate a ministry for as much as 6 years before we'll actually do it. And so anyway, all these things we try to say, all these things have to be in place. And as a result, the place continues to be a very vital place run by the social systems of the operation. We're very disciplined about organizational stuff too, but it's really run by a dynamic social environment where people all share the vision and all work together for it.
Have you learned I would say, am I correct in assuming that there are two sources for your learning experience? And there are many others, I'm sure, but one of them seems to be definitely your involvement with ethnic groups that seem to flow according to those more organic relationships. And number two, another segment that would seem to be far from it, MIT and the whole systems thinking world. These two worlds would seem to be very different from each other, and yet in your case they've coincided and enriched
you're right.
Your sense of ministry.
We do
beautiful.
A lot of the kind of stuff that we study does come out of MIT and so forth. And but one of the things that you need to know is that dramatic things are happening in science today. Before, science and faith were almost antagonistic to each other, but the really cutting edge of science is really something that Christians can now work with, and they need us. and so we're finding no trouble, working with the cutting edge of science. I mean, we did a study on youth violence, okay, and the study was published by Johns Hopkins University Journal, and people from Harvard University were written into it, and so forth. And so, but neither of those institutions could have done the work, because they didn't have all the contact with all the youth violence and community organizations that we had. And so we were able to make all the thing work for them and bring in their technology, their techniques and so forth. And we learned how youth violence works. I mean, with any problem of that nature that's that complex, it's easy to try to solve the problem and cause the problem more. And so we studied it very carefully, what will actually produce lowering elements of youth violence in our entire city over time. And so that was the basis of the study. And these universities just were thinking, this is great, this is really cutting edge stuff. And so we can work with the scientific community too. at a level that's never been possible before. And it's because of the systemic sciences where they're really starting to understand how living things work, how they're getting closer to the way God made things to work, and they're understanding it that way.
Well, I think I could go on listening to you guys and conversing for a very long time. Thank you so much for
well, thank you for having us. This is
my
wonderful.
life, and I'm sure a lot of the people who will see and hear this interview will also be quite blessed and impressed as well, you know, by the kinds of things that you have shared with us tonight. I'm particularly impacted by, you know, this coincidence of spiritual insights and respect for biblical principles, particularly such principles as servant leadership and listening to the Spirit as it moves within the environment that you're working in. And you know, one of the things that has impressed me always about the Emmanuel Gospel Center is it's very unassuming way of doing things and doing great things on behalf of the kingdom. And I think we all need to learn from the insights that you guys have gained over so many years, and particularly just what you incarnate. Authentic leadership, authentic ministry, that God has blessed that humility and He has found open vessels within which to pour His power and His wisdom. And you guys have been a blessing to the city of Boston, to New England, even to the world over the decades that you guys have been serving ministry. You've certainly blessed my own life and my own congregation. Congregation Lion of Judah was birthed at the Emmanuel Gospel Center close to 30 years ago by a man named Juan Vergara, and I was one of its first members. And you served as that place where for 6-7 months we began our ministry. So God has used you in all kinds of ways, and you're an example to us all. May God continue to give you rich ministry, long, healthy lives, and many more insights that you can share with us. God bless you both, and you've been a blessing to us.
Thank you so much for this time.
Thank you for coming, and I hope that it won't be the last time that we sit here and carry on this conversation. God bless you. Thank you so much for tuning in with us. We bless you as well, and look forward to our next time together.